Hi everyone. Welcome to Creator Toolbox, a show brought to you by us, the ServiceNow Developer Program, especially on this YouTube channel. This show, Creator Toolbox, is where we demo new ServiceNow features for everybody. For anybody that builds on ServiceNow, anybody that uses ServiceNow, this is the stuff that we make for you so that we can actually show you the products from our product managers. In the top right above Pranav's shoulder, you'll see that we're in the Xanadu content. So this is Creator Toolbox for Xanadu. We took a break for about a month while our team traveled all over the world for World Forums, but also because we were waiting for Store Release 2, which is very soon, as we'll talk about very soon. But yeah, we're in the middle of our Xanadu content. If you want to look at what else we've been doing for Xanadu, go look at that link at the bottom of your screen, devlink.sn/Xanadu. You'll see all the blogs and podcasts and live streams that we've been doing around Xanadu content. So be sure to check that out. Before we jump into our content, let's do some introductions. I'm Earl Duque. I'm a senior developer advocate here at ServiceNow. So that means we just help doing a lot of the cool developer stuff and building community around developers. I've been with the company for 3 years now. And before that, I was working for different customers for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years before that. Before I joined ServiceNow proper. And then I'll kick it off to Pranav to introduce himself.
Hey, thanks, Earl. So my name is Pranav Bhagat, and I'm also Senior Developer Advocate here at ServiceNow. I will be completing my 2 years this month. And before joining ServiceNow, I was working as a consultant with multiple organization. And that's pretty much about me. And I'm going to pass it to Eliza, who's our guest today.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Typical spiel. As mentioned, I'm Eliza Orchard. I'm an outbound product manager here at ServiceNow, focusing on everything that is not out of the box with generative AI within the platform. So you might have already heard we're talking about analysis skill kit today, which is very much bringing us down that route of custom generative AI workflows. A little bit more about myself. I'm based in beautiful, not so sunny today, Seattle.
That's common.
And yeah, it's we had a good summer, but it never lasts. But yeah, I've been at ServiceNow for just about 3.5 years now. So surprisingly, have tenure now, I guess.
Yeah, that's a veteran at this point.
Yeah.
So this is the Creator Toolbox show. We also have a kind of like a partner, kind of like a sibling show called Live Coding Happy Hour. So if you go to our channel, if you look at the recent live streams, we actually did some building with what we're talking about today, Analysis Skill Kit. And so if you want to see kind of how we do it in a live format where we run into walls and we troubleshoot and we look at documentation and we go through it, that's that show. But this show, we want to show you the features like as cleanly as possible and straightforward as possible, straight from the product manager's mouth kind of thing, so that you get both of those perspectives of, hey, everything that Analysis Skill Kit has to offer you, and then on our side, like, oh, let's try to build stuff with it together kind of thing. So we have that kind of 1-2 punch with these shows. But now that we're done with all our introductions, I'm going to go and pass it off to Eliza to show us everything about Analysis Skill Kit.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Earl. And yeah, I appreciate the confidence. This should be a pretty clean demo, but I sacrificed the goat earlier. Let's hope the demo gods are actually smiling upon us. But anywho, so as mentioned, today is all about Now Assist Skill Kit. And what Now Assist Skill Kit is, it's a new feature that was released in Xanadu back in our August release. And it's really taken off running. Basically, what it is a tool for you to go out and build custom generative AI workflows and skills. What this means is, let's say you've been looking at analysis and you're like, okay, awesome. We've got incidents. We have resolution note generation. But what if you have like an industry specific workflow or a hyper specific use case that out of the box, it's just not going to be able to cover? This is where Analysis Skill Kit kind of steps in and allows for you to go and create those kind of more niche skills that you're looking for when wanting to use generative AI within your instance. So I will be giving a little bit of a spiel, a little bit of an introduction to SkillKit, but I'll try and get into that instance as soon as possible to give you guys a little taster of what that looks like. So,
oh, our favorite slide.
Yeah. I know at this point I need it like tattooed on me or something. So let me begin my speech. I am a product manager. I do have access to the roadmap, so I may be making forward-looking statements. If you're hearing these forward-looking statements, please do not make any purchasing decisions based on them because they are subject to change. And I will try to actually point out what's anything that I say when if it is one of these forward-looking statements, but yeah, we'll be in the product so you can see what is actually available today within the product, and I'll be pointing out the areas that are going to be developed out further. So yeah. Now, I'm sure at this point, a lot of you are very familiar with generative AI, but I did just want to kind of take a step back and just give you a foundational understanding of what we are doing when we say, oh, let's go out and build a generative AI workflow or a custom skill. Like, I want to just take a step back and remind everyone how it's actually working in the kind of background there. So with generative AI, the way that I kind of see it is the first step is to gather data. You want to, generally with generative AI, you want to do something. You've got some sort of verb, be it you want to analyze something, you want to generate content, you want to summarize something. And that something is the data. And that data can be within your instance today, it can be just pulling out information from records. You might have an integration with a third-party vendor that you want to pull in data from and do something with that. So that's really the first step, is trying to figure out like, okay, how to pull in the data. And we'll showcase that in a demo if you've got a more complex use case. But anyway, so you're gathering the input, the data you want to work upon. The next portion is to actually go out and create your prompt. And what a prompt is, for those who are a bit newer in this space, is basically the set of instructions that tell our large language model, or LLM, what do we want done with this data? So going back to those verbs I said earlier, if you want to summarize an incident, for example, you'll be passing in the data from that incident. And within your prompt, you'll be saying, hey, I want you to go out and summarize this incident data and kind of combine that data with a prompt combined. We send that off to that large language model, that little brain icon in the middle there, that will then go and actually essentially do what you ask it to. And then we'll return the response kind of in a string format for you to display, to use as an output in a field, anything like that. So as a whole, that's, I guess that's generative AI in a nutshell.
I mean, it's funny because I feel like we've talked so much about Now Assist or generative AI features. We still haven't really sat there and on this channel and actually explained it. So thanks for doing that for some people, because I know eventually once we do all of these live streams, I want us to go. We plan on doing an overview video for the generative AI features, so that's coming probably after this month's live streams end. But thanks for doing that first time actually explaining it for us, Eliza.
No worries at all. It just makes it a lot easier when you can look at the diagram and be like, oh, okay, rather than explaining in products. So hopefully it helped. If I helped one person, my job's done. So going back to SkillKit a little bit, and earlier I mentioned basically what SkillKit allows for you to do is build custom generative AI skills. But I want to take a step back and just remind everyone what it means to actually be custom in this space. So I'm sure if you've attended any of these past creator toolboxes or live coding happy hours that have kind of dealt with generative AI in the past, you've probably seen some of these out-of-the-box skills that we provide where you go out, you buy analysis for ITSM, and you get a bunch of pre-configured, pre-validated generative AI skills, such as, summarization, code generation, resolution node generation. That's what we're calling out of the box here, is the ones you just go into Analysis Admin and turn them on. When we talk about custom skills, these are the use cases that are created that are not available directly within, kind of analysis for ITSM, CSM, HRSD packages. You can create them directly with Analysis Skill Kit, or you can actually use the Generative AI controller. If you go back pre-Xanadu, you might have seen this. You can actually create them using directly within Virtual Agent Designer, Flow Designer, or even directly in scripts if you're so minded. But as a product manager for Analysis Skill Kit, I will say, if you are going down this route, it's probably the easiest method. It's highly recommended that you build custom directly with Analysis Skill Kit.
It is indeed easier. I've done both. The generative AI controller used to be pretty easy to configure, and now it's kind of become a behemoth. And
yeah,
I mean, if you look at chat to two of us, so Christy was also on the episode last Friday when we were playing with Analysis Skill Kit, and it's easily become like something we're really having fun with making and experimenting with and creating stuff. So that's a good testament of it, because our team, the developer advocates, we were all previously developers too. So it's just like, the fun stuff that we wish we would have been able to play with when we were, well, I guess we all joined before generative AI stuff happened, but it's like stuff that would have been really fun to have when we were working too. So it's fun stuff.
Yeah, I feel like Skill Kit abstracts all the not so fun stuff and just lets you play around with like the output, which is where it gets interesting when you're developing, I feel. But maybe that's me. But awesome. And I love the feedback from everyone in chat just saying, oh, it's my favorite analysis feature to date. It really makes me glow inside a little.
Hopefully others aren't watching.
Oh, exactly. I won't tell anyone. It's fine. It's between us. But anyway, so with that said, you do have to follow the mantra, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, where with anything in ServiceNow, you should always try to configure rather than customize. And what we mean there is if you're going out, you have a specific use case. If you go out and build something entirely custom, you build business rules, you do like a script includes that's triggered by a on change like event within a field, that's all stuff that you then have to go out and maintain. And even though Analysis Skill Kit, it's awesome, it's pretty streamlined, it's still something that moving into the future, you'll have to maintain that if, tables change, if, upgrades occur, you have to go through and manage that yourself. So our advice is always to try and stick as close to out of the box as possible. And maybe considering this is a creator toolbox, I see what you guys do in the live coding happy hours. You guys really get into the guts of the product. But officially from a product management perspective, we try to say, hey, if out of the box works for you, stick with that. Don't rock the boat just because it does get easier during upgrades, or if you're looking for support. Our support teams have a lot more kind of documentation and understanding of things that we've built rather than troubleshooting something that you've built. So the advice very much is if you can stick with direct out of the box, just activating the skills, beautiful. Best case scenario.
Just funny because the first thing we did on live coding happy hour was delete all of the out of box from text and then just start from scratch. So, oops.
Hey, I mean, sometimes it's what you have to do. I mean, I was a developer in my past life and I did some things I'm not proud of. But I'm no longer working there, so it's not my problem, right? But yeah, you do also have the option for particular out-of-the-box skills to use the prompt management options within Now sysadmin to just tweak the out-of-the-box skills. For example, the screenshot we have, which is tiny, that's showing the incident summarization prompt management options, where you go out and say, okay, when you're summarizing this incident, do you want additional fields to be brought in? Or do you want to change how the output is formatted? These are the options we provide out of the box, and that's only going to get better as we kind of have more cycles to develop and build them out. So that's kind of the next best option. But if just activating or configuring the out of the box isn't for you, perhaps jump into SkillKit and build something custom. And I'll just briefly walk through what Analysis SkillKit is before we get into it. But really what it is a new builder for you to go out and create these new custom skills. We've got a screenshot on the right, but basically you author your prompts in this middle section here. You can augment the prompts, and what that means is basically bringing in that data that we talked about earlier. So that could be directly from a record, that could be from a script or a subflow. And then you can then bring in these kind of skill contents directly into the prompt. So, and this is a sample that you're seeing here. We're asking it to summarize an incident, and we bring in the fields directly from the incident into that prompt there. You have the option to test your prompt against records directly within your instance. So it's a good way just to evaluate, is your skill doing what you want it to do? And then once you're happy with it, you finalize it, you publish it, you then activate it within Now sysadmin console. And you actually also have the option to decide how you want these custom skills to be triggered. Now, as of the August release, you can basically trigger it through UI actions. But as of Thursday, you can actually have them triggered through the analysis panel as well. So I don't know, safe harbor still in accordance if it's 2 days out.
I think so. Technically, it's already baked and going to be released. So,
right. Okay. You guys can make purchasing decisions based on that. It's one statement. Anywho, so what we'll be doing today in the demo, just walking through the user journey. So when you're building out a custom skill, you define the provider. So it's like, which LLM do you want to use? We have a generic LLM, which is perfect and not perfect, but it's pretty good in most scenarios. You can bring your own LLM as well if you've got like a fine-tuned model, your organization has one, or you can actually connect to particular third-party LLMs via our spokes, such as Watson X, Azure OpenAI, Amazon Bedrock coming soon, coming on Thursday, Safe Harbor. But we have options there as well that just make the process of connecting a bit easier. You then build your skills, so that includes developing the prompt, determining where you want to bring in that input data from. And you can also adjust the prompt settings, which is things like the temperature, where you tell the LM essentially how random you want it to be. After that, you test, and then you go and deploy in the manner of your choosing. So I do see a question from Jace asking, when you bring your own LLM, does ServiceNow host it or do you? So when we say bring your own LLM, that means that it could be a third party hosting it, such as like an AWS or Azure LLM, or it could be one that you host yourself. But that is something that basically it's an external third party LLM. that we're talking about in that scenario.
Yeah, not making your own LLM and having it hosted on data servers. It's more connecting to the existing third-party ones.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the only LLMs that we ourselves host are our ServiceNow LLM service. LLMs.
Yeah, it's basically
LLM,
when you get into the configuration, it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Eliza, but it's basically whatever you configure your the generative AI controller to have as options is what's available for this.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And if you're interested in learning more and seeing what's available via the spokes or just how to actually bring your own LLM, like how to connect up there, you have the FAQ, which I think, Pranav, you might have the link, be able to drop that link in there. And that has a pretty robust answer to the which LLMs I can use question details on that. But now we get to the good stuff. Well, hopefully the good stuff. Where we actually go into the instance and walk through a demo. So what we'll be building today, and this is the first time I built this live, so let's see how it goes. But we will be actually building a knowledge article categorizer. So what we'll be doing is first going into Flow Designer and essentially extracting a list of knowledge-based categories that we have within our instance. We collect those categories, and then we actually pass that through into the prompt within SkillKit to say, hey, based on the text of this knowledge article and this list of categories, find the category that best describes this knowledge article. So the LM is going to look at this list of categories. It's going to look at the contents and go, I think this pertains more so to the operating systems category or the devices category. And then we're going to go and actually auto assign that category to the knowledge article itself. So this is really handy if you're going out, if you're migrating a knowledge base, or your team might not have been the best at accurately categorizing them. So we're just trying to help expedite that process there using generative AI, which tends to be the outcome. We're looking at efficiency when you talk about generative AI, so this is helping out there.
I also want to just give Eliza some flowers for, like, whenever she does this demo or talks about Now It's a Skill Kit, she always uses a different use case and different example to demo. And that's not very common amongst product managers, because it's like you make a demo and it's more work if you keep changing it up. But Eliza, every time she does an academy or a live stream, always uses a different example. So big kudos to Eliza for going the extra mile and whenever presenting this stuff. That's like extra work, and we appreciate the effort. So it's kind of like the whole world around Now It's a Skill Kit, like all the lore. If you want to know all the different examples that Eliza's done, you have to watch all her videos. You have to go to each one.
Exactly. This is a saga of epic proportions, There's a lot of storylines here. But no, I appreciate that. It's it keeps me interested, Beautiful. So can you see my instance?
Yes.
Love to hear it. So welcome to a Xanadu instance. The first thing that we want to do if we're going out and building anything within Now It's a Skill Kit is to actually go ahead and give ourselves the roles that we need. Now, I'm already a little bit zoomed in, but hopefully that makes it better.
That looks great. So, and again, kudos to you for zooming in without prompting.
Oh, you are so welcome. I've just had a lot of comments in the past saying, like, I need to get my glasses out. So I tried to be cognizant of that. But anywho, so this is the first step, and it's the step that I get the most questions on, is they install, they've got their Xanadu instance, they install any of the Nowsys plugins. So that's a little fact point number one for you is if you want access to Nowsys Skill Kit, you need Nowsys for ITSM or Nowsys for HRSD. Basically, any of those Nowsys kind of packages, SKUs, grants you access to Nowsys Skill Kit. But once you've installed that plugin on your Xanadu instance, you need to go to your user profile, change the view so you can actually see the roles, and click Edit. And wait, be patient, unlike me. And give yourself the ServiceNow Skill Builder Admin role. Super important. You're used to it with Nowsys Creator, but now you have to add one for Skill Builder. And after you save it, this is one where you do actually have to log out and log back in before it actually takes. So keep that in mind. But yeah, so let's actually first jump into our knowledge base just to see what this looks like. So last night I was busy. I was writing out these knowledge articles that have been sitting on my to-do list forever. But, you know, I was so busy writing the content of these that I didn't actually bother to put in a category. So let's actually use an example to showcase what this is and skills are actually going to look like. So looking at this knowledge base article, we've got troubleshooting common mouse issues. You know, you all have them. You get that bit of dust and you go, well, my first thought is to go to ServiceNow and look up, I'm having trouble with my mouse, right? Right?
Yeah, common. I mean, I just replaced my mouse last week, so yes, common.
Thank you for validating my use case. Anywho, so I wrote this knowledge article out and I'm just gonna say, hey, can you categorize this for me? So triggering through UI action. And you can see that the category of the record was updated from null to devices. Please review out of update for accuracy. So this is jumping straight to the end of the story of this is what our skill is actually going to look like. Just so you have that context. So what we're going to do, I'm just gonna unclear that. So how do we actually build this? Now, the first step, as I alluded to earlier, was to actually just bring in the data that we want. So in our scenario, if I bring this up, we want to bring in the list of knowledge article like categories that we have within the system so it knows what we can actually select from. So in that scenario, we're actually going to open up Flow Designer and create a new subflow.
It's just making me it's interesting to think about because like a lot of these things like, oh yeah, I could write just a straight up long JavaScript to do some of these things, but then I mean, it depends on your workflow, right? Like if I was the only person responsible for this, that kind of makes sense because it's my code. I'm keeping it up to date, but when you start getting into low code or team or handing things over to other people or you leave and other people have to inherit it, setting it up, it makes more sense when you set it up. I mean, that's one of the benefits of ServiceNow, right? So that things are in building blocks, things are separated into subflows or flows or actions or different places so that people can reuse things. So it's just adding the way for people to do it the ServiceNow way as opposed to just the pure pro code scripting way.
Exactly. And as much as I love, I feel like the most satisfaction I ever get in my life is like when I write a script and it's actually working. But it's not often. If I have to go in and change things, even like a week later, it's gone. So we're going to be using a mixture today of Pro Code, Flow Designer, which we write like 3 lines of code, so medium code. And then using Nowsys Skill Kit, which is very much like low code. So we're going to be touching all areas here today. But yeah, having things abstracted out. I mean, in this scenario, we're building now the subflow that actually helps you return a list of the knowledge base categories, and perhaps one day you need to use that somewhere else. So you never know when what you create might be useful. So we're going to build a subflow out here. And first thing we're going to do is actually define the output. So we're going to open this up. And what we're going to be returning is those IT knowledge base categories. And that is just going to be a string. We then go and create ourselves what is called a flow variable. And what this flow variable is I just want to say, like, it's like a global variable that you can like assign information to when you're building this subflow. And what we're going to be doing is we iterate through all the categories in the subflow, we're going to be appending to this flow variable string, just saying like, okay, here's one category, here's the next category, and we're just going to be returning this at the end. So KB categories. And this is going to be where we store that. Okay. Now to the fun stuff where we actually take action. So again, we want to retrieve the list of categories that exist within the instance. So we're going to be doing an action of type look up records. And make sure it's plural. There's a different action that is just look up record.
The classic gotcha for Flow Designer, yeah.
Oh, it's definitely a gotcha. It's got me good a few times. And we're going to be looking through the KB category table. And now this is a secret little source, but for us, actually, what might be handy is if I go into the category table itself, just to show you folk what this table looks like. Oh dear, was it KB? Did I type plural? There we go. Okay,
another ServiceNow gotcha. Which ones are plural and which ones aren't?
I know, system property. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be doing this for the IT knowledge base articles only. So we're actually going to only want to return the knowledge base categories within the IT knowledge base. So I'm going to be grabbing the system ID, and we're going to say, hey, we only want to return the categories where the parent ID is that system ID. Oops. And we're done. So that's going to return an array of these knowledge categories. And you're going to add a flow logic step to essentially iterate through these records. And we want to set our flow variable that we created earlier. And we'll be scripting this. Now, just to show you how the sausage is made a little bit, I have another screen on the side, which is how I'm typing so fast, and just copying and pasting and making sure I don't forget anything. But what we're doing here is we get the result. We basically, for each of the records that are returned from our lookup knowledge category records, we're appending it to our flow variable. And that's just what this code is doing. And then we just add a new line to essentially break up the categories by, like, essentially this means like the enter key, essentially.
Like,
so
can I ask,
yeah.
is there any reason why you set it up as a new line delimiter versus like building an array?
So the way that it gets returned, I mean,
Is it because it's just because
it's
does now assist skill kit need it to be as a string, or can it
yeah,
accept? Oh, okay, that's why basically, because
yeah,
then you can do it whatever way. Okay, it's much easier if it's just a string then with a new line. Okay, that makes sense to me.
yeah, exactly. I mean, you can. I don't know. I'm just thinking like if you return an array, and
You would have to
yeah, no,
stringify it first,
yeah,
anyways.
yeah,
Yeah, you would have to
exactly.
stringify it,
Mhm.
anyways, and then parse it on the skill kit side. So okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. No, good question though. Yeah, I'll say inputs, outputs to skill kit is generally just string format. But we can talk about that later. So after iterating this, we then actually go out and we just set, sorry, assign the subflow output. And this is where we go ahead and say, okay, the output, which is compiled KB categories, is just going to be our flow variable that we set. And then bada bing, bada boom, we'll save it.
Mhm.
We will test it.
And so it should return those, what, 8 to 10 knowledge categories, right? 8, perfect.
And
Yeah.
do we get a drum roll? Oh dear. I think so. That wasn't right. However, I think I know perhaps why. I perhaps don't know why. See,
It
this
looks like
is
script step, right?
sorry.
I think it's on the script step. It didn't set properly because
Yeah,
it found all the records properly.
right.
Yeah. Can you go to the script one?
Let's
Yeah.
perhaps I can empty data. Perhaps it's just a reference. That should be fine. Oh, it's because I changed the name from what I originally
What
had.
yeah,
So
compiled
don't copy
IT
and
KB
paste
categories
it.
versus, yeah, exactly.
And this is the magic of why you test.
That's true. If you didn't, we would have got too far along and be like, what?
Yeah. There we
Heyo.
go. Yay. Um
Oh, people at home didn't see, but Eliza gave herself a nice little round of applause in a circle. So because we're full screen right now, so we didn't see that. I wanted to just point out that, yay, we clapping for ourselves. If it was a Friday, we would all take a drink right now.
Yeah, no, it's I'll have a sip of water to cheers to that. So anyway, so now we have our data that we want to work upon. And let's actually get into Nelson's skill kit with 40 minutes in.
39 minutes.
I swear it's going to be expedited from now on. So if we go to
Well,
Nelson's
I mean,
skill,
just to talk about what you said at the beginning, like one of the biggest steps is preparing your data.
exactly. It depends on where you're pulling in data from. Those subflows, you might have to build out an integration. You might have to just simply bring in from a record. Where's your oyster here, really? But it is the most important step because it's what you're working on. So with analysis skill kit, I will say as of Thursday, the UI might be a little bit different, but at its core, it's the same. We actually go ahead and create a new skill, and let's just call it knowledge. It's a little categorizer. And this is where you actually select which LLM you will be using. So as you see, we have out of the box, you are allowed to use a generic text-to-text based now LLM model. But if you want to use an external LLM, such as Azure OpenAI, Aleph Alpha, Google Cloud, you can actually do that as well. And you do have to connect via the spokes and kind of add your API key and endpoint and all that good stuff before you'll actually send off the request. Or if you do bring your own LLM, so any of those LLMs that are not in there, you'll select custom LLM from the top here. So, but today we're keeping it simple. We're using Now LLM. And you click create skill.
And just as a reminder, one of the gotchas is if you try to go to Now Assist Skill Kit in your navigator and then it just shows up a blank screen, go back and check if you have the roles, if you have the plugins turned on, if they're updated. And that's usually the reason why. That's a reminder.
Yeah. Thank you. It's can we get like a PSA banner?
Oh, we did display that earlier actually when you were talking.
Incredible. So first things first, let's give our prompt a name. Let's just call it the categorizer version 1. I like to think it's like, oh, like sounds as cool as the like Terminator or something, but
The
anywho.
categorizer.
Yeah. Although it does kill me. I'm from New Zealand, so each time I type with a Z instead of an S, I'm like, oh. Anywho, so welcome to NASA Skill Kit proper. Within this prompt area, we do display a sample prompt, but we don't want any of that. We want to create a custom skill that goes out and categorizes our knowledge articles. And luck would have it, I just had on my clipboard one that's already created. How cool is that?
How convenient.
Yeah. So what we're doing within our prompt, and this is something that you will likely have to iterate upon many times to make sure that you're actually giving the instructions that the LLM interprets. And it's less so of an art form and more so, I want to say brute forcing, just shoving words and eventually you'll get what you want. Like within this prompt, you can see down here, at one point I said, hey, return only the category that we want. And it was still giving me a nice blurb explaining why, like, oh, why did I think that this was pertaining to devices? I didn't want that. So I added in no other text. And that instruction finally got through to the LM to say, hey, we don't want any other text. So I'm sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, in the chat, Jace is in the chat and pointed out earlier that we were injecting no yapping into our prompt on Friday because it's a nice little hack to make the LLM stop adding flower text all over everything.
And you get the Gen Z crowd in here. It's win-win. So we're gonna save this prompt. And we have our instructions now written out. So let's bring in the data. So on the left here is where you're going to be adding in essentially the references to the data that you want to bring in. So in our scenario, first we want to add a reference to a knowledge article to say, okay, the contents of the knowledge article we actually want to categorize. So we're going to add a skill put, and as you can see, you can technically pass in like a direct string, like an array or even like a JSON object, but these are all static, essentially. So you have to just type in what you want the input to be. But in our case, we want to bring in a particular record, which in our case is that knowledge article. And we're going to bring in our test article, which is the one I showed earlier. Oh.
I'm pretty sure it was the 0.02.
Thank you. And boom, it's going to be added. We then want to bring in the output of our subflow. So do that through adding in a tool of type. We can bring in the output of a flow action, a subflow, or a script. And again, as Earl kind of brought up earlier, the output of these does need to be a string. Like we're passing in text to the LLM. So if you don't bring in text from your output, then it's going to throw a bit of a hissy fit. And we're going to call this get categories. And massive gotcha. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I didn't actually publish this. So make sure to publish your subflow, otherwise it won't be available.
Also, while that's publishing and while you're configuring that, can I ask, we haven't really used the word tools in any other like place inside ServiceNow. Is there a reason why we are calling these like bringing in information from the instance or from subflows or from anything? Why are we calling it tools?
You're asking dangerous questions
Okay.
here. So the way that we kind of saw this is, so you have the skill inputs, which is more so just like a static. You're bringing in text from somewhere else. But the tool is something that it just has an extra bit of like functionality behind it. So we settled on the name tool. No real strong rhyme or reason, but we just felt like it fit in this context. Yeah, it's a very vague answer, but I wish there's a better story behind it. But
Hey, just wondering.
yeah, no, it's a good question. But anywho, so now that we have a prompt, we want to actually bring in the references to these skill contents. So what we see here is we are want to provide the prompt with the following categories, and we're going to bring the output of our subflow in there. So I say insert inputs, add a reference to our subflow that we published, and you'll see the curly braces, which if you ever built notifications or email templates, you'll be familiar with those. And then you scroll down and we want to provide in the text from the knowledge base article itself, which in our scenario, the title of our knowledge article is basically the short description. And then the issue is just going to be the description. And now let's run it and see if that worked. Oh, there you go. So
okay, nice.
I know it's a bit underwhelming.
That was very sudden and faster than I expected it to be. Okay.
Yeah, look at that. This is demo instance and it was fast. It's but anywho, so you see the response down here from the LLM, but a good way to troubleshoot is to look at the grounded prompts just to make sure that the data you bring in is actually what it should be. So you can see we had the output from our subflow there. Then you can also scroll down and, see, I passed in the title, but I said description, whereas, normally we want to actually bring in text, which is actually the article body field. So if we run this test again, we should actually see the knowledge article itself.
Yep.
But we still get the same response.
Yeah.
So. Okay, so in this scenario,
technically is a false positive, so that's why it's really good to make sure you're looking through all of the logs.
Exactly. So in this scenario, we're happy with it. I would advocate testing a little bit more than just on one record, but unless you want to sit around here for a few hours where I test upon hundreds of records, we'll just be happy. We'll finalize the prompt, and this basically locks down the prompt, means that people can't come in, they can't come and edit it. But I will say, pro tip, if you do want to essentially do like a version control, create a new version of it, all you have to do is click add prompt, create a new prompt name, and then you can essentially do versioning that way. But once it's locked down, like you can see, I can't actually go in and edit anything or insert new inputs.
Doesn't it do versioning too once once you try to update the prompt after publishing and everything too?
After publishing, I mean,
'Cause if I recall, if I when I try to update a published one, it would automatically add like a V2 at the end of my.
oh, at the end of the skill or at the end of the prompt?
On the bottom left, it would actually look like
Oh,
it would get rid of the older version and say this is version 2 version. Oh, I guess you're saying if you want to maintain old versions. Okay, that makes sense.
yeah. Yeah, so I think this might be what you're referencing, or if I did want to create a version 2, like if I had already published the skill and everything, yeah, you can add it down. It'll be added down here, and you still have reference to the old ones. Perhaps?
No, so like if you go to categorizer version 1 and then
Mhm.
change it and then re-finalize it, then I think it changes it to like a version 2.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, you've got it right.
Yeah, but it replaces the old. It basically replaces the old one. So if you want to maintain an
Mhm.
older version, then that's when you would kind of fork it in that prompts list. Right.
Exactly.
Cool.
No, massively good call out there. But yeah, so in our scenario, though, we don't want to iterate on it today. We want to actually dictate how this will be deployed. And if you remember, just jumping back here, what we're going to be doing is creating a UI action that then triggers this custom skill to run and then put the output in that category field. So to do so, we go to skill settings and then down to deployment settings. And safe harbor for Thursday, there's that analysis panel. But going top to bottom here, analysis features is basically just where you'll be activating it from within the analysis admin console. So today, this is a knowledge base item. So it's essentially platform. And we're going to add it within the knowledge base feature. And I swear this will make sense. I'll show it to you with analysis admin, but it's just where does it appear within there. And then you scroll down here and decide where we want to deploy it to. So for today, we just want to do it as a UI action on that knowledge article table. No, sorry, just not KB knowledge. If I do. And then we click UI action. And then boom, it goes out and creates our UI action. And I sure it's thinking. There you go. And what we want to do first thing, so this is just your typical UI action. For us today, we're actually going to want to do this recategorizing en masse. So we're going to make this available from the list view as well. So I'm just going to select list banner button. And going down, you can see the condition is pre-configured to say, hey, if you have activated this particular skill, then this UI action should show up for the users. You can add in other conditions there as well if you only want particular users to use it. But then we get to let me just crack my knuckles here, the pro scripting part, a pro
Nice.
code part. So going down here, this is all automatically generated. We've got our inputs payload, which you can see we're just passing in the knowledge article that we want to categorize. Down here is we're essentially creating the request format. So telling the LLM which skill we want to actually run and then passing in that payload. So that data that we want to bring in from the knowledge article itself. And then just out of the box, all we have is this try catch statement saying, hey, we're going to run this custom skill. We're going to execute this request and then output the message, the output from the LM and that little info message. Kind of lame. And honestly, the output out of the box is just a response from the LM in JSON format, which for most users isn't particularly helpful. So what we're going to do And let me get my copy and paste.
Copy and paste, yes.
And let me actually just comment that out. And we're going to replace this try catch statement with some more code. So what we're doing in here is we're just going to store the original category label if there is one. We then execute the request, and this looks a little bit different to what we had above, and that's just because we're actually extracting out the response. So if we are looking back at our skill, we want to just return this string here, and that's what we're doing in here.
For all of you watching at home, that line right there, line 37, if you ever get confused on how to get the actual output, just the output, this is where you want to remember to go back to the video and just copy and paste that exact line down, basically, and that'll get you where you need to go.
And it is also on the Analysis Skill Kit FAQ, which is available on community as well, if you prefer to copy and paste. Otherwise, have fun typing it out. But yes, that line is gold. Anywho, so looking through the rest of it, we are going to essentially populate the category field using the output of the model. And then we go through, if we have actually gone through and updated the knowledge article, we want to save that record and then just publish to the user to say, hey, the category of the record has been updated from the original category to the output of the model. However, if we don't actually have a value, if there was no response, if it was like, if the article didn't actually have a category, if the LM couldn't categorize the article, then we're just going to say, hey, no matching category was found for the model output. And then we also had that catch, something went wrong. This is a bit of a lengthy code, and we're a little bit short on time, but I will say, basically down here, this is getting the category sysID from the model output itself, and that's just looking to find that reference within that category list and making sure that we're using that sysID rather than just inputting a string. So doing that mapping, and then we make sure that the page doesn't send us elsewhere. So long story short, I do actually have, if you want to recreate this, we do have a Analysis Skill Kit use case library that has a walkthrough of this as well. So you can take your time going through that. Now that we've done this, we've saved our UI action. We're going to go back to our prompt and publish it. And here you just essentially select which prompt you want to have published. And then you want to use with the custom skill. And then you click publish. Now with some demo magic, I already did this earlier this morning.
And for those of you who are following along at home doing this along with Eliza, one thing that, so Eliza just alluded to, like, she's already done this, that's why she's going to just show it off on the here, but make sure you activate that UI action because it comes in defaulted to inactive, so make sure to turn it on.
Yeah, exactly. However, I think this is a good list test because within Analysis Admin, so you can just go there, Analysis Admin. To turn it on and activate it, you can go to Analysis Features, and then if you remember that piece that I said, it decides where it shows up within Analysis Admin. This is that. So we publish it to the knowledge-based skill category. You go through activate the skill, and this you'll select, okay, do you want to display within the core UI, which is basically showing that UI action? Gut feeling is, I think this might activate the UI action for you.
Oh, okay.
Potentially. And then if you want to display the analysis panel there and activate. me get the little yippee astronaut. And then...
Did it do it?
Yeah, I'm actually curious now to see. Okay, yeah. So it does automatically update that knowledge, that UI
okay.
action.
That's cool. We jumped ahead of the horse like on Friday. Then we were like, we have to activate it, right? It's not active, and then we activated it.
No, that's all good. See, you guys are just so thorough, you know. We're trying to make your life easier, and you know. Anywho, so let's see if this works.
That was Eliza's
moment of
polite way of
truth.
saying we're very impatient.
So you can see here we have 4 knowledge articles, which are relatively, you know, IT based. And then you have me just plugging, hey, New Zealand Tourism Board, sponsor me, an essential guide to traveling to New Zealand, which does not actually pertain to IT, surprisingly. So what we're going to do is click on them all and click on our UI action. And
it is running it for all five. So yeah, there you go.
yeah.
Oh, cool.
It'd be nice to add some UI sugar to get like a loading bar, but that's fine. But you can see we have the informational message that's saying like, hey, we've changed it from null to devices. And then that no matching category is found for the record 1005, which, if my gut tells me correctly,
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's actually really ingenious to make it a banner button for all the records, because then now you know exactly which records you need to go through and work on again.
Yeah. Exactly. So hopefully, yeah, and you can see that it actually, common mouse issues, yeah, it pertains to devices, Grammarly, application. We'll ignore the fact that I said Mac OS here and it gave it operating systems. It's not wrong.
I know it's technically correct, which is the best kind of correct.
Exactly. Whereas the date and time one was correctly assigned to Mac. So I did go a little bit over time, but I hope this gave a little bit of insight into NASA's skill kit. Do I have time to quickly plug some additional resources?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So I've mentioned this a few times already, and I think we will be adding this into the video description for those watching later on. But if you're new to NASA Skill Kit, I do have, there is help out there. So first of all, if you want to hear more of my voice and see a different use case, we do have the AI Academy session, which is hosted on the AI Academy playlist on YouTube. So feel free to take a look there. We also have on community a bunch of articles. So primarily the FAQ is going to serve you well. I already kind of mentioned, it does talk about, okay, what you need to access NASA Skill Kit. So those requirements. We then also cover things such as which LLMs can you use and then how to actually get access to them. So if you're interested in learning more about the model, that generic LLM model, you can find information there. Or if you wanted to bring your own LLM, we have a link to the generic LLM connector. There's a bunch of information in here. It gets updated all the time, including common issues. So do check there first before raising a support ticket. And lastly, if you want to build out your own use case, but you're not sure where to start, we do also have on community the NASA Skill Kit use case library. And this is updated pretty frequently, and it basically contains a walkthrough on building out these use cases, including the one we did today. So if you want to recreate this, perhaps even do it for like incidents or something like that, you can just go through and there's a step-by-step guide saying like, okay, type here, identify columns. It's just a long walkthrough with all the screenshots in there. So yeah, I think that's it for my spiel. I'll hand back to you guys.
I have one question. Oh, yeah. So, Liza, like I saw this thing. This is more like we are providing a knowledge article, and then we are getting the category and everything. What can it this be made more conversational? Like I know, like we have it available on Thursday via the Now Sys panel. So, for example, I want to create a skill where I give one input, and based on that, I get some answer, and then I can basically do a conversational. Is it possible with this thing, or is it more like just one input and output for now?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I will say, I guess like plugging like roadmap item that we do have roadmap item targeted for like first half of next year is to be able to deploy your custom skills directly in virtual agent. In terms of like building out a custom skill to have it just act essentially like conversationally, at the moment, now the skill kit is essentially like a one and done. Like you pass in the input
Mm-hmm.
along with the prompt, and then it spits out an output. You can like LLMs are good at understanding. So let's say you built out a custom skill, you were interacting with that within virtual agent. For example, like, yeah, you can just have the user type in a particular query and then that'll be passed to the LM to kind of interpret. So you don't need to be strict with it, I guess. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question there.
Yeah, yeah. I think I love to play around this thing.
Yeah.
Maybe I have an idea that's life getting happier. Let's see how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm curious what I feel like you've got like a destination in your head. And I'd love to see what we can accomplish there. But
Yes.
yeah.
I had a question also, and it's more of a request, maybe for the FAQ. On Friday, we were trying to do some pre-processor and post-processor stuff, but we didn't know exactly what was happening in the payload and or what we had access to. We saw in the example script that you could do output stuff, like mess with the outputs, but what about inputs? Is that available? We couldn't figure out what the variable names were because it's not documented. And so if we could get an example payload or what's available to us in there, that would be helpful for us to be able to mess with. I know we didn't cover it in the demo, but that maybe is like now it's a skill kit advanced a future session kind of thing.
Exactly. So just to kind of paint a picture for the viewers at home, we do have the option of, they're called pre-processors and post-processors. Oh gosh.
Skill settings and then
This
click
is
on
how
and the
infrequently
now LLM generic. There you go.
Can you tell this is a not super commonly used feature?
We were trying.
So with the pre-processors and post-processors, what this essentially is doing is allowing for you to edit the payload before it goes to the LM, and then it was returned back from the LM. So let's say in the scenario that you potentially have like an anonymization service that you want to use, and you want to run your payload before sending it out, essentially like out to your LLM. You want to anonymize particular data, or do some sort of masking. I would say we do have a plugin that allows for you to do that called the sensitive data handler. But in the scenario, you've got your own, it's got an API that you want to connect to. So you can add a preprocessor to actually go through and transform that input. Sorry. So this is where you can actually do that. So let's say you just say like, hey, can I pass input to the anonymization service and then return it back and then return the payload, and that will get sent off to the LM. And then the post processor, you can essentially like unmask or de-anonymize your data in that particular scenario here before returning it for use in your instance. We can definitely go out and get more get an example of how to actually work within here, what this import actually looks like, and try to provide some more support there.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Note taken. Appreciate it.
Even just an example payload, just so we know what we're working with. Cool.
Yeah.
That was my question. You covered everything basically else on it, so that's good. Okay, well, the rest is a lot of people just feeling excited to jump into it. A lot of people, we had one question from Christy, or not question, but just talking about what they were doing for their with Now as a skill kit for their hack zone stuff, for knowledge and creator con. So that's fun stuff. But otherwise, it is Now as a skill kit stuff. So we had the Friday episode, we had today's episode. After a few of us come back from World Forum travel, we're going to continue what we were building on our live coding happy hour episode, because we had 2 goals and we got through 1 goal, and now we want to do the second goal. So we're going to continue that on. Christy has ideas for what she wants to build with it. And then Pranav has ideas of what he wants to build with it. So we're probably going to keep playing with it and keep exploring this, just because it's very exciting, true, like, oh, developers get to build stuff kind of stuff. So it's exciting for us. Hopefully it's exciting for everybody watching this too. But I think that's it for us. If anybody has any more announcements, anybody, go look at the calendar, check it out, and then that's it. We are a little bit over, but I think since we're going through content, I think that's perfectly fine. That's what people want. So thank you, Eliza, again. That was really great. Phenomenal. I love that you go the extra mile for these use cases. You spent the extra night building custom data for it, and it's like, oh, that's way more effort than I would have done for it. So good job.
It was all ChatGPT writing these knowledge articles.
It's still fine. You're still setting up the records. Thank you again, and thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your days.